Welcome back, my pack, my tribe, to Howling After Dark. Paranormal True Crime tonight. Next up on the list is the murder of William Desmond Taylor. Now, I realize that most people nowadays probably have no clue who that is. But in Hollywood, it was a scandal that rocked the movie biz in 1922 because the untimely death of successful silent film director William Desmond Taylor, man, that rocked the entertainment community of 1922. He perished in his own home of at least one gunshot wound to his back. Since he was carrying cash and wearing a diamond ring, robbery didn't seem to be a motive. The case grabbed headlines as a voluminous list of suspects entered the fray. Was it his newly hired valet, a man with a sketchy past? Was it his former valet who'd stolen from Taylor just months before? Was it Taylor's girlfriend, movie star Mabel Normand? Or, most usually, did it have something to do with the young starlet whose career Taylor was shepherding along at the urging of the girl's zealous stage mother? A screenwriter couldn't have come up with a better mystery than this. And here's why it says at least one gunshot. It's because they don't know. Here's what happened. The police that responded to the shooting at his home in 1922 did their job. So it's not at all their fault. You know, they didn't have like the procedures like they do today to help prevent this kind of thing. But what happened is, while evidently, I shall say, allegedly, I shall say, while the police were watching the front door, the killer or killers took the body out the back door and disappeared with it. But neighbors reported hearing at least one gunshot. So it's a big mystery. And here's the bigger mystery, or maybe I should say the bigger coincidence. The house that William Desmond Taylor lived in, another murder took place in just 50 years later, 40 years later, something like that. And I'm talking, of course, about the Charles Manson murders. The same house that Laura Tate was killed in. Or is it Linda? I don't know. I always get confused on that. Mrs. Tate, we'll call her, was killed in. That is now renownedly haunted. Here's another good unsolved one. The murder of Ken Rex McElroy. Another must-read for aficionados of unsolved cases. Harry N. McLean's Edgar-winning true crime tale in broad daylight and murder in Skidmore. It weaves the incredible tale of a Missouri town rising up to take down the man who was regarded as the local bully, a violent man who committed crime after crime, including child molestation, but always escaping serious jail time. Ken Rex McElroy's murder took place As the McLean's book title suggests, in the middle of the day, in the middle of town, like Wild West vigilantes, McLean suggests that those who were involved have upheld a code of secrecy that's been kept for over 30 years. So Ken Rex McElroy was accused of being a local bully, of crimes including child molestation, and basically, even though it doesn't really say it here, they lynched him. And this is only 30 years ago. Or no, I'm sorry. They kept it secret for 30 years. But this was like back in the 60s. So realistically, not all that long ago. And it was never solved because honestly, the police were probably kind of in on it. I would have to imagine. This one still fucking blows my mind. The Michael Rockefeller disappearance. Carl Hoffman's outstanding 2014 book, Savage Harvest, offers a compelling answer to the question that's haunted the Rockefeller legacy since 1961. What happened to eager young Michael Rockefeller, who vanished while collecting indigenous art among the Asmat tribe of what was then Netherlands New Guinea? Though his father, New York State Governor and future Vice President Nelson Rockefeller, had the means and clout to launch a formidable search, no trace of the 22-year-old recent Harvard grad was ever found. Hoffman's well-researched exploration suggests that Michael, long rumored to have met his demise at the hands of locals, gifted woodcarvers who were also documented to be cannibals and headhunters, may have unknowingly upset a delicate peace between warring villages in the region and been targeted simply for being in the wrong place at the wrong time. For followers of the case, this theory is the most satisfying one we'll probably ever encounter. So they didn't even really know. Now, other than maybe Jack the Ripper, and no series of crimes, no singular crime has captured the morbid curiosity of people around the world more than the Black Dahlia and the Zodiac. Now, what's interesting is that this gentleman, actually, let me see if I can't pull this up really quick. This gentleman by the name of John Cameron, not to be confused with the movie guy, different John Cameron. This gentleman named John Cameron, who was a Montana law officer. He worked in actually, hold on, let me just pull it up real quick. So I want to make sure I get this right. Let's see. I'm trying to find where it says it, but yeah, he was a Montana law officer, and that's where he actually first came into contact with Edwards. And he wrote this book called Edward Wayne Edwards, the Serial Killer You've Never Heard of. And what it details in this book is all theory, technically, and it always will be for the most part, because Edwards has since died, and there's no longer any way to actually prove it. But there is a lot of circumstances, a lot of coincidence pointing to the fact that this gentleman, this John Cameron, may actually be correct. But John Cameron is a 53-year-old retired police detective from Great Falls, Montana. His career in law enforcement began in 1979. He retired in 2005 as a sergeant of detectives working cold cases. He's worked on FBI serial killer task forces catching ritualistic child cannibal killer Nathan Bard Jonah. His cases have been featured on America's Most Wanted, Dateline NBC, and he helped produce a series known as Most Evil True TV. In 2010, while working as an analyst for the Montana Board of Pardons and Parole in Deer Lodge Prison, Montana, he was in a position to access information that had been kept secret for 55 years, unraveling the most intelligent serial killer ever. And I believe that may actually be true, and we're going to get into that. Edward Wayne Edwards, the serial killer you've never heard of. It's me, Edward Wayne Edwards, serial killer you never heard of, is the name of the book. You can check out coldcasecameron.com. It lists a lot of the facts I'm talking about tonight. Edwards pled guilty in March of 2011 to 5 murders and demanded to be executed by lethal injection. He's scheduled to die August 31st, 2011, but died on April 7th of natural causes. So we do know for a fact that he is definitely a murderer. Now let me go to the timeline. On 28th of 1928, May 30th, in Akron, Ohio, right here, 15 minutes away from where I live, Edwards is born. According to Edwards' NCIC records, hold on. NCIC records, he had used 2 different dates of birth. The first was May 30th, 1928. The second was June 14th, 1933, a 5-year difference. So, it's either one of those two. They don't really know for sure. But in any case, so that's the beginning of the mystery that is this guy. In 1938, on August 2nd, in Akron, Ohio, Ed's mother, Lillian Myers, is shot in the stomach. He would have been either 10 years old or 5 years old. In 1938, August 8, Akron, Ohio, Ed's mother, Lillian Myers, dies of septicemia. Ed is 5 or 10. His name is changed to Edward Wayne Edwards. He is adopted by Fred and Mary Ethel Edwards. Mary Ethel also died shortly after the death of Ed's first mother. Edwards' 1972 book detailed his horrible upbringing and loss of 2 mothers before age 7. Yes, he did write a book, and I'm not giving him credit for that. 1940, in October, in Palmdale, Ohio, Edwards, age 7, supposedly, is sent to Palmdale Catholic Orphanage, dang it, all tongue-tied tonight, for out-of-control behavior. Edwards remains in Palmdale Catholic Orphanage from 1940 until 1945. 1945, Cleveland, Ohio. Edwards, age 12, is thrown out of Palmdale Catholic Orphanage near Cleveland, Ohio. During his formative years, a serial killer who cuts people up and lays them out in public is all over the front pages. That's the serial killer I was talking about, the Cleveland Torso Killer. Edwards commits his first known murders at age 13. Or 18, depending on which birth record you go by. 1945, June 5th, Chicago, Illinois. He murdered 43-year-old Josephine Ross, stabbed, throat slit, and placed in a bathtub. Body wash and adhesive tape placed on wounds of the body. December 11th, 1945, Chicago, Illinois, murderer Francis Brown, shot to the head, stabbed, post-mortem, placed in a bathtub, body wash, adhesive tape placed on wounds. Lipstick message left on the wall. Now, this is important for those that don't know. The whole lipstick message thing repeats just 2 years later in 1947 with the Elizabeth Short, the Black Dahlia. A lipstick message was written on her body. January 6th to the 7th in 1946 in Chicago, Illinois. By age 12 or 18, depending on which, once again, you're going by, Edwards had killed 2 women that represented his mother. His next victim is a 6-year-old girl. He lured her out of her home on a Sunday night and left a message and ransom note. 1946, January 6 or 7 at Chicago, Illinois. Murder of 6-year-old Suzanne Degnan. Suzanne Degnan was Edwards' first known murder of a 6-year-old girl lured out of her home to a basement and killed while her parents slept. He dismembered her in a wash basin. He left a false ransom note. 50 years later, he will kill, and I believe this. There is no proof, but I do believe this. There is actually a lot of evidence pointing in this direction. 50 years later, he will kill JonBenet Ramsey in a similar MO. The MOs are actually almost exact. Suzanne was beheaded and dismembered in a basement. Edwards spread her remains throughout the sewers of Chicago and taunted the family, press, and police with false letters and phone calls. Edwards documented Suzanne's killing in his book. He will detail the 3 hours he had with her in the basement. And I'm not going to get into that because it's pretty gruesome. 1946, October, Akron, Ohio. Edwards is a runaway but caught burning a Bible and vandalizing a Catholic church. Nobody knows he's been killing in surrounding states. He details the age of 13 and describes his next killing as a parable in his book. Once again, not going to read it. 1947, January 15th, Los Angeles, California. Edwards, either 13 or 18, kills 22-year-old Elizabeth Short, known as the Black Dahlia. Edwards detailed the year 1946 through 47 in his book, portions of which described Elizabeth Short's injuries. In January of 1947, I was 13 years old. I loved riddles and murder mysteries. I regularly listened to radio programs like Suspense, The Whistler, Lights Out, and Inner Sanctum. And I was impressionable. On January 16, 1947, I read Fiend Tortures, Kills Girl, Leaves Body in L.A. Lot in the Morning L.A. Examiner headlines. The front page article said that the girl was nude and bisected at the waist. And see, he goes on to allude that he was the killer without actually saying he was the killer. He enjoyed tormenting people so much that he did not want to admit to any of this. But he would, like when Cameron would interview him, and I know this because I've actually heard interviews with him about it. When he interviewed Edwards in prison, he would talk about a lot of these cases that he hasn't admitted to, and just kind of give that sick smile. So, I mean, yeah, in a court of law, that's not going to hold up, obviously, but, I mean, And they never, let's see, 1947, January 22nd, Hollywood, California. Edwards is pictured in the Los Angeles Examiner at age 13 and a half, standing with Elizabeth Short in a photo booth shortly before her death. Police are trying to identify the young man in the photo who had checked into a hotel room demanding a bathtub. They never identify the boy in the picture but have information that he was from Ohio. Which, he is from Ohio. June of 1947, FBI reports attempting to ID Edwards. Edwards never gets identified in 1947. His deep resentment for his mother and older people is reflected in his first 3 murders. He's caught burning a Bible in Akron, Ohio, and is sent to St. Gerard's Catholic Reformatory in Valley Forge, Pennsylvania. He's been diagnosed a sadomasochist with deep dislike for old people. Which is kind of ironic because yeah. And this is just the beginning of his serial killer career. This is only from 1933, when he was born, until 1949. Then, in 1950, in April of 1950, Edwards was released from Catholic League Services custody from Phoenixville Catholic Reformatory near Valley Forge, Pennsylvania, at the age of 17. June 22nd, 1950, Parris Island, South Carolina. Edwards lies about his age and cons his way into the Marines. September 1950, Edward goes AWOL and starts portraying himself as a CIA agent. He writes about killing in his book. 1951, May, Daytona Beach, Florida. Edward runs the country AWOL from September 1950 until May 1951. Edwards is caught in Florida, starts informing to FBI on communist sympathizers, and is released to the Shore Patrol. April 25th, 1952, once again in Ohio. In Chillicothe, Ohio, Edwards caught impersonating an officer and goes to prison in Chillicothe. He meets Charlie Manson for the first time. Both are from Cleveland, Ohio. Manson was born in 1934 and Edwards in 1933. October of 1953, Edwards released from Chillicothe prison. He describes in his book how he would plan each killing. April 6th, Boulder, Colorado, 1954. Edward kills Dorothy Gay Howard, age 19, and a memorial is constructed as her remains were never identified until 2007. 1954, May, Chillicothe, Ohio. Charlie Manson is released on parole. Edwards knew Charlie Manson. 1954, July 4th. Cleveland, Ohio. Edwards kills Marilyn Shepard, age 30. She's pregnant and he beats her to death in her bedroom while her husband was asleep on the couch. And that one, he describes how he did it in his book in 1972. August 31st, 1954, Sioux City, Iowa. Edwards kidnaps 8-year-old Jimmy Bremmers on September 29th, 1954. His decapitated body is found and his hands have been removed. You're going to hear a lot of decapitation and mutilation, so if you got a weak stomach, you may want to stop listening now. 1955, March 3rd, Sioux City, Iowa. Police arrest an innocent man named Ernest Triplett for killing Jimmy Bremmers. He's mentally ill and confesses the crime causes panic in Iowa. Bremmers will be released in 1972. He was framed by Edwards, and he was the first of many, including the West Memphis Three. That became part of his MO, is getting it pinned on other people. 1955, March 11th to April 6th in Akron, Ohio. Edwards caught as a fugitive from Texas for burglary in Ohio. Authorities do not realize he's the killer of Marilyn Shepard and Jimmy Bremmers just 9 months earlier. Edward escapes a courtroom, assumes the name Dr. James Garfield Langley, and runs the country for 10 more months. April 28, 1955, Berkeley, California. Edwards escapes Ohio and lies in his book about where he went. He flees to San Francisco, where he resumes the name Dr. James Garfield Langley. He kidnaps Stephanie Bryan, age 14. He is last seen fleeing on Mount Diablo Boulevard, heading towards Mount Diablo. He buries Stephanie's body at Burton Abbott's cabin, setting him up. May 2nd, 1955, Berkeley, California. 3 days after kidnapping Stephanie, Edwards mails a ransom note to Dr. Bryan. June 17th, Sioux City, Iowa. 1955, Ernest Triplett is convicted and sent to prison in Iowa for the August 31st, 1954 kidnapping and beheading of Jimmy Bremmer Edwards, committed. July 7th, Sioux City, Iowa. Ernest Triplett enters Iowa State Prison. 3 days later, Edwards kidnaps 22-month-old Donna Sue Davis in Sioux City as revenge. July 10th, Sioux City, Iowa. 1955, Sunday night, Edwards kidnaps 22-month-old Donna Sue Davis from her home while her parents are at home. Police go public saying the FBI cannot get involved until the kidnapper crosses state lines. Monday, July 11th, 1955, early Monday morning at the Davis home, Captain Rispoldi, I think I'm saying that right, explains that the FBI cannot be called in on the case until proof exists that the abductor took Donna Sue across a state line or contacted the Davises asking for money or other consideration in exchange for Donna Sue's return. More detectives descend upon the neighborhood, talking with residents about the previous day's and evening's activities. They perform a house-to-house check. July 11th, 1955, Sioux City, Iowa, or Sioux City, Nebraska. Edwards plants Donna Sue's Davis's body across the state lines in Nebraska, just a few miles away from where he kidnapped her. July 16th, 1955, Berkeley, California. Edwards returns to San Francisco and taunts the police and press with false letters that detail how he stalked and killed Stephanie Bryan. Edwards also sends his first count 13 years before he will send counts in the Zodiac killings. That's right. He was the Zodiac, we were pretty sure. We can't prove it. We can't prove it. I wish we could. I wish that I could get on a spirit box with this dude and get him to admit it and record it, and then that would be admissible in court, because at least it would definitively put the mysteries to bed. But in my heart of hearts, I know he is the guy. I'm telling you, if you're at all into true crime and whether it be paranormal or not, I urge you to check out this book, because there's just too much coincidence. July 20th, 1955, Trinity County, California. Edwards injects himself into the investigation under assumed name and leads the San Francisco Examiner reporter Ed Montgomery and photographer Bob Bryant to Stephanie Bryan's body, buried behind Burton Abbott's cabin. And then and this goes on from 1933 until 2011, basically. And even in last year, 2000, this whole last year, 2015, they're still finding more links to him and other killings that, they previously had no idea. I'm going to skip over some of this stuff. If you want to check it out, then by all means, feel free to come check it out. It's at Cold Case Cameron, all one word, Cold Case Cameron, CAMERON.com. And you can order the book. If you're at all into books and true crime, I highly suggest it. July 31st, 1969, Edwards sends his first Zodiac killer letter. This is right after let's see. Actually, let me back up a little bit. December 20th of 1968 in Vallejo, California, the first Zodiac killing. Edwards approaches T Park, parked on a lover's lane in Vallejo. He kills him, shooting the female victim 5 times in the back. January 7th, 1969, Deer Lodge Prison, Montana. Frank Dryman is released from Deer Lodge Prison on parole to Vallejo, California. Absconded parole from 1970 until 2010. I'm not sure how that's relevant, but okay. March 31st, 1969, Akron, Ohio. Edwards' first child, April, was born on March 31st. Edwards' mother was born on April 1st. He had hoped his first daughter would be born on April 1st. Edwards would ritually tie his killings to April 1st throughout his life. 1969, Akron, Ohio. Edwards has all his teeth removed. Edwards' wife, Kay, confirmed it in a 2010 interview. July 4th, 1969, Benicia, California. The second Zodiac killing. Edwards kills on 4th of July. He taunts the police with this phone call. I want to report a double murder. If you go 1 mile east on Columbus Parkway to the public park, you will find the kids in a brown car. They were shot with a 9mm Luger. I also killed those kids last December. Goodbye. Yeah. July 31st, 1969, Edwards sends his first Zodiac letter, which read, I like killing people because it is so much fun. It is more fun than killing wild game in the forest because man is the most dangerous animal of all. To kill something gives me the most thrilling experience. It is even better than getting your rocks off with a girl. The best part of it is that when I die, I will be reborn in a paradise, and they have killed will become my slaves. I will not give you my name because you will try to slow down or stop my collecting of slaves for my afterlife. And all of it is horribly misspelled, by the way, which they think was kind of done on purpose. But there were also coded 18 characters of a code were on the bottom of the letter that were and when they deciphered it finally, this is what he believes it says. I'm Edward E. Vexed IQ hath you greater than I. Basically taunting them. And just a short time later, on August 8th, in L.A., August 8th, 1968, in L.A., Sharon Tate is murdered by members of the Charles Manson family. October 11th, 1969, the fourth Zodiac killing. Edwards kills cab driver Paul Stine near his cousin Don Bollett's house in San Francisco. Kay Edwards talks about the connection in a 2010 interview. So she even believes it. October 13th, 1969, San Francisco, California. Edwards mails the dripping pen letter after killing Stine. That's, the most famous letter where he included for the first time the little crosshair sign on the bottom of the letter. And I'm not going to read it. He doesn't deserve credit at all. But it kind of blows me away how he got away with this. I'm going to skip forward to the 90s. And the reason why is by this time he's an old man. He's, it's like 50s, 60s, something like that. But in 1990, In January, he had been in Ohio, Colorado, Oklahoma, and Arizona. He traveled a lot. His profession was actually as a traveling salesman, I think. Edwards moved continually, leaving his wife Kay for long periods of time. He was running guns in large quantities, peddling meth, and asking others to do it for him. He was making money on insurance fraud, informing to ATF and FBI agents, and forced to testify in court in the 80s and 90s as a snitch. 1991, West Palm Beach, Florida. Edwards sends Scorpion Zodiac letters to America's Most Wanted host John Walsh. Father to Adam Walsh. John Walsh does not release them publicly until 2006. Edwards will taunt John Walsh throughout the 90s and 2000s. So there is some indication that he may have had something to do with that killing too. August of 1992, Fort Collins, Colorado. An arrest warrant is issued for Timothy Masters for the 1987 killing of Peggy Hetrick in Fort Collins, which, of course, Edwards did. August 21st, 1992, Ruby Ridge, Naples, Idaho. Federal agents kill the Weaver family at Ruby Ridge. Then, in April 19th, 1993, was the whole Waco, Texas thing. And then May 5th of 1993 in West Memphis, Arkansas, the biggest travesty of justice in recent history is perpetrated by Edwards. And I'm still pissed at the state of Arkansas for this, by the way. In 1993, on May 5th, West Memphis, Arkansas, Edwards lures Christopher Byers, Stephen Branch, and Michael Moore, age 8, to Robin Hood Hills Park in West Memphis on a full moon night. He beats them to death with his cane, ties them up ritualistically, placing white shoelaces on one side and black on the other. He beats them repeatedly on the left side of the head. He ties their bodies into a ritualistic shape. The Mason symbol. He removes the foreskin around one penis to represent bringing him to nothingness. He then drowns him in the river. He drains him of blood.